out of this. Okay, so last time we went through the story of Sodom, and actually we ended with the Lot and
Well, we didn't finish the story.
we did finish the story, right? So we have to finish the story before we get to the Akedah. It's
Right.
true.
That's
So
why I was
right. I thought we could already be there. So let's start with the Humash, and then we'll start with the Akedah later during today. So 1 second. I want to pull up the text of the story. So we are on chapter 19. Chapter 19, verse. I'll go to verse 18, 19. And that is where Lot. 1 second, I just want to pull the text up.
Well, not the left hand.
So Lot leaves Sodom, and he asks for permission to run away and hide in that city called Torah, because he cannot make it to the mountain. And eventually, even though he gets that permission, okay, I'm going to share the screen 1 second. Okay, so what do we read here? This interesting negotiation between Lot and the Malachim. Please, spare the city. I think sometimes we even skip that question, that Abraham negotiated with God to spare the cities of the 5 cities, and he couldn't get to the number 10. So the decree was made, and Lot escaped. And now Lot saves, because I need a place to stay. Let me stay in Sodom. So at the end, not all 5 cities were destroyed; only 4 of them. So, and that is something that happens also in Bereshit previously with the forbidden fruit. God says the day you eat from it, you're going to die, and eventually he doesn't die. And that is something that is woven into the fabric of Bereshit, to show that even with those harsh punishments, there is a glimpse of hope. And it almost tells us the tale is not to be taken as written literally. It could be sort of a mythical story following, because people in the area of the region knew of maybe there was an ancient memory of the earthquakes that shook the area. We don't really know that area was fertile at a certain point. So this could be something that was created post facto. They already they created this story of a city or settlements that live there and are destroyed because of their behavior. But we spoke already about last week about Sodom being punished for its the way it's treated the poor and the needy and the strangers, right? And that is based on intra-biblical interpretation. If you don't, we have a little bit of information in Bereshit, and the rest is supplemented by Yehezkel. Now, there is here in verse 26 the strange story of Lot's wife. She was warned, don't turn around. They didn't say what is going to happen when you turn around, right? And but she turns around. Anyone ever saw Lot's wife? Did you have a chance to see her? Yeah. And the tour guides like to take you around Yamamela and show you Lot's wife. I think they show a different one every couple of years. It's a rock formation. But what is the idea of Lot's wife turning into salt? There are different interpretations.
Right. The whole thing is she's looking back, you have the 2 of them, Lot and his wife. Lot is offering his daughters to the people. Must have been a wonderful father.
Amazing, yeah.
If I could have one like that. And his wife, we don't know anything. We don't know her name. We don't know nothing.
Right.
But she left there her other daughters, her son-in-laws, the grandchildren.
Right.
It's not surprising
That she
that
turns around.
she's turning back for a second to look at the past,
Right.
even though the angels tell her, don't look at the past, look into the future.
Right.
And when she does that, she becomes frozen in time
Right.
between the past and the future that she's
moving
get
forward, but her face looks backward. Right.
to. Correct.
Right.
And I don't, and what,
But Rashi
when I
says-
looked at it,
but
and
Rashi
nowhere
said that.
it says that Lot was devastated
Yeah.
or upset.
Oh yeah, just
or,
right.
He just moves on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never figured that.
I always
Paid
look
attention
at
to
the
that.
people as human being. I mean, wouldn't you be a little bit
Right.
devastated?
At least later on, you could say that at the moment it was like in the trauma, it was like he's escaping. There's an emergency, but we don't find that he's sitting shiva for her or
any feeling.
or any feelings, right?
Or saying oy vey, I mean, or something.
Right. So I think that there's a good point that you're bringing up, Rachel. That this is kind of where, and just like the fault line, the earthquake is a fault line. There's an earthquake that breaks the family apart. Those who remain in Sodom are the sons-in-law, which the way I understand it, they stayed there because they couldn't believe that someone will
Destroy.
that someone will be willing to help them. When Lot comes and says, "Come, leave the town because you're in danger," they say it's impossible. Nobody helps. No one helps another person. We don't believe you. You're a liar. You wanted to take our houses when we leave. So there's no communication between them. So he leaves them behind. He doesn't care. Either he doesn't care or he wants to save himself. Lot's wife, like you said, she can't let go of her past. It's not a punishment. A lot of commentators read it as a punishment that she turned around, maybe that she was gloating,
Lost faith.
or lost faith. But
no.
if, like you said, frozen in time, and that's why it's salt. The salt is mentioned later on, Brit Melach Olam, that it is brought with all the sacrifices, because salt doesn't rot. You could dig salt thousands of years, after it was formed, and you can still use it, right? So that is something that is permanent. That connection of a mother to her children and to where she was brought up. On the other hand, Lot is completely severed from that part of the family, and he moves on. We also see another strong contrast with previous events, and that's in verse 27, 28. וישכם אברהם בבוקר אל המקום אשר עמד שם את פני אדוני. He rises up early in the morning. וישקף על פני סדום ועמורה ועל פני כל ארץ הכיכר. וירא והנה עלה קיטור הארץ כקיטור הכבשן. He watches over the land, and the steam rises up as it does from a furnace. That's the only time where the word kivshan, a furnace, is really mentioned in connection with Abraham. All the midrashic stories about Abraham falling in the furnace have no basis, but actually there's one place where kivshan is mentioned. But there's another parallelism here.
And yet he's not worried about Lot. He just looks and then he goes back home.
No, we don't know that he doesn't mourn. Abraham looks to see
I
what...
don't know that he's not mourning,
Right.
but it's like very passive. He's looking, I argued, nothing happened.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know about that. It's true. But remember also that the Torah is very terse. The Torah does not divulge too many details. In the places where you would have thought, that's your opportunity to describe feelings and reaction, we don't know. You're fill in the blanks. That's why the Midrash had such fertile grounds to go on and elaborate and explain. But also, remember the description of the Jordan Valley before the destruction, when Lot
looks in the horizon.
And how does it look? What does it compare to?
Beautiful,
Kegan Elohim
water.
Boacha Mitzrayim. It's compared to the Garden of Eden, and that is
something 17.
In chapter 13, verse 10 says, "Ki kula mashke kegan Adonai ke'eretz Mitzrayim boachat soar." It's like the Garden of God. Where is the Garden of God? It's the Garden of Eden. Here, he looks over those cities, and he says, "V'nei ala kitor haaretz kekitor hakivshan." Steam is rising from the ground, and there's also steam rising from the ground in the Garden of Eden, because Adam ayin la'avodat ha'adama, there were not humans around to fertilize the land, so God brings out that vapor, ve'ed ya'aleh min haaretz, and you could and that is how the land was watered. So the contrast is interesting. What we have here is that here's the Garden of Eden. Here's like this beautiful place planted by God, and the steam comes up to water the land. Why? Ve'adam ain. There's no man. On one hand, we were missing someone to cultivate the land, but also the cause of destruction could be mankind. So Sodom, which is a fertile land settled by humans, they take advantage of the land. They don't want to share it with others. Eventually, bring destruction with that steam rising from the ground. But so we go on reading verse 29. God remembers Abraham. He sends Lot out of the hafecha, mitoch hafecha. Those two words, mitoch hafecha, were immortalized in our literature.
Yeah.
In Kabbalat Shabbat, Kum mitzei mitoch hafecha. Rabbi Shlomo Elkabetz took it from here. בהפוך את הערים אשר ישב בהם לוט, ויעל לוט מצוער וישב בהר ושתי בנותיו עמו. This is in verse 30. He goes out of Zoar and he sits in the mountain. כי ירא לשבת בצוער, וישב במערה הוא ושתי בנותיו, and he lives in Zoar in a cave with his two daughters. What happened with Zoar? The Torah doesn't say. Maybe thunder was still rumbling, things were still going on.
So just to be safe, he's
in the cave. ותאמר הבכירה אל הצעירה, אבינו זקן, ואיש אין בארץ, לבוא עלינו כדרך כל הארץ. So the firstborn told the younger one, there's no one here, there's not one man, not a man in the land to sleep with us and to have children. So let us sleep with our father. This is a very strange story. Especially since we just read that the city of Tzar survived. It was spared. So either something happened and they saw the Tzar was destroyed, or people fled, or maybe they understood that after what happened in Sodom, the people heard about that night, they are blamed for the destruction because the angels or the messengers came to their house, took them out. So they said nobody would want to be with us because we are to be blamed. They felt completely cut off from society. So they sleep with their father first, the firstborn, second, then the secondborn, and there are several interesting things. Obviously, this is horrific. The way that we have incest, but in a way reversed. Always the man is usually the perpetrator, and here's the daughters are doing to their father. The commentators, I think, Rashi, following the Midrash, correctly trace it to what happened before in Sodom. He was willing to sacrifice his daughters, so they did this to him. There's another interesting connection to other parts of Tanakh, and that is that the first child is called Moav, which literally means from the father, Moav. And Moav later on is the progenitor of Ruth.
Right.
And Ruth has a somewhat similar scene with Boaz when she goes down to the threshing ground and sleeps next to him.
But it's not incest.
No, of course it's not incest, but also something that is not totally right. Anyway, so they have this moment. It's possible also that this is a story that is created to deepen the difference between Abraham and Lot. Because later on in Tanakh we will find the motif of being chosen at the Bechira. I took Abraham. So in each stage, someone stays, someone leaves. What happens to those who left? So it shows us the first ramification. Abraham goes here, creates this beautiful family, and Lot goes there, loses his moral integrity, and ends up having children through incest with his daughters, not knowing, and all that. So, and those nations, Moab and Ammon, later on are the neighboring nations of Israel. And so it could be that
but
also
you're not allowed to marry.
You're not to attack them. You're not to marry them. So it could be that this is installed here as a way to deter people from getting too close to Ammon and Moab, because culturally they were very close. Ammon and Moab spoke similar languages and ethnically were the same. So that's a way to keep them away. Then Avraham goes to the Negev, Vayeshev ben Kadesh uben Shur, Vayagor Bigrar. In Israel we had the joke on how do we know that Avraham had an old car, because it says Vayelech Avraham haloch v'nasoa negba. He used to haloch v'nasoa, walk and drive, and then later on Vayagor Bigrar, he ends up with a tow truck. It's so Grar is a land of the Pelishtim, and something similar to what happens with Paro, and that keeps the commentators and scholars engaged in conversation. What is this story that repeats 3 times in Bereshit? One with the Sarah being taken by Paro, then by Avimelech, and then Rivka also is taken by Avimelech. Is it the same story with different versions? That's the biblical criticism approach. We'll look at it as one text. So there are differences between what happens with Paro and what happens with Avimelech. So well, the first difference, the striking difference, is that before.
Why would anybody want to take her if she's such an old lady?
So that is another issue. Like what if?
But also that big hero
She's very good
Abraham
looking. Yeah.
comes. This is my sister. What a coward! I mean, he's standing behind her. This is my sister, so she's there to be taken.
Right. So there is
His life is more important.
So there is a degree of rebuke in this story that doesn't exist in the story of Paro, because before they got to Mitzrayim, Avraham tells Sarah, he says, "Would you be willing to say that you're my sister?" And she doesn't answer. She's not. Oh yeah, why not? She doesn't answer, which is. She's not happy with it, but at least he asked her. Unlike Lot, who doesn't ask his daughter.
Was it a question?
I think there was a question. I think that if you look at this dialogue in the context of the cultural background of that time, it was a big thing. So for today, we would say obviously you have to ask your wife for something like that, or for even just. I know I have to ask my wife, even if I want to go out, then I have to check with her first, so she'll not be upset that I scheduled the wrong date. But back then, for Avraham to have this conversation with her was a big thing. And later on, we'll see that she has a voice.
But here is my question.
I'm not defending Avraham. I'm saying
Lot, if he's such a nobleman, how come he doesn't offer himself? Why does he offer his daughters? Now, Avraham does the same thing. If he's such a big, offer yourself. Why are you offering your wife?
They're not interested in him.
Because a woman was a lesser
disposable
value than a man was.
Yes,
That's the
I
time.
agree. That's what I'm saying. When you look at the times, of what happens in biblical times, a woman was considered almost a property of her father, then to be transferred to be a property of the husband. And when we look at Lot and his daughters, it's exactly that. Lot is using his property to save his guests, right? And then similar story with Pilegesh Bagivai at the end of the book of Shoftim, the concubine or the mistress which was being sacrificed, and he doesn't even care. No, he wakes up in the morning after they gang raped her the whole night. He goes out, she's falling on the ground, says, "Get up, let's go home." And then, she's dead. What horrible people. This is really one of the
and he doesn't give her the decency even to bury her. He cuts her into 12 pieces.
Right. But if we stay focused on this story, what happens is that with Paro, before they get to Mitzrayim, Avraham does ask Sarah, "Are you willing?" Imrina, that's the question. He pleads with her. Imrina hotiat. However, when they go to the land of Pelishtim, there's no such conversation. And that's where the rebuke is. Like the author is telling Avraham, you got used to it. One time you went through it. Now the second time you go and you say, Ahoti, you didn't even talk to her. You got used to it on the passport. Right. We're a brother and sister traveling together. And the answer is, why do you go to Gra? There's the other difference. When he went to Egypt, it was because of famine. Now there's no famine. Why are you going to Gerar? He goes anyway. And and then Elohim appears to Avimelech, which did not happen with Paro. Paro was, the communication was through plagues. Here it's through a divine message. Va'avimelech lo karav elea. So Avimelech didn't touch her. According to to Rashi, obviously, hamalach menao. He was prevented by an angel. But according to the text, no, Avimelech maybe had plans for her, but maybe he wanted to marry her and make her a queen or something like that, but not in a disrespectful manner. So, wait, what's the next chapter here? So, what is Avimelech's response to God? Vayomar Adonai Hagoy gam tzadik taharog. Are you going to kill the Gentile or the non-deserving with the righteous? And that reflects Abraham's argument about Sodom. It's the exact same argument. Are you going to destroy everyone indiscriminately, kill the righteous and the sinner? So Avimelech now becomes Abraham. Avimelech speaks for Abraham. He says, I didn't know that what I'm doing is forbidden. He says, Alu amar li ahotihi vehi gami amra hihu. So now we find out that she also said, he is my brother. So
well, he told her to say it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, where? So he says she's my brother, and he also emphasized, and maybe that's the hint. Vehi gam hi amra, the repetition. You know, sometimes when you repeat something too many times, it's because you don't believe in it. That's exactly the lie. It says I did it innocently, and Avimelech. I'm skipping like the next couple of psukim. He says God tells him to return her, let her go back to her husband, and he will pray for you. Otherwise, you're going to be punished. So he does that. Avimelech calls Abraham in verse 9. He says, "What have I done to you? You brought such great misery to my kingdom. This should not have been done." And Abraham answers this: "Vayomer Abraham ki amarti rak en yirat Elohim b'makom hazeh v'haraguni al devar ishti." It seems like a feeble excuse, but really it's an essential, in my opinion, element, especially in the book of Bereshit, because the term Yirat Elokim, and it also appears in Shemot. The other person who says who speaks about Yirat Elokim is Yosef. When he accuses his brothers of being spies and he puts them in prison, he says, "Zot asuv yihyu et ha'Elohim ani yareh." I'm going to spare your lives because I fear God. And there was the Maggid of Dubna who said that shows that everybody should revere God. Because if reverence of Elohim was something that was unique to Israelites or Hebrews only, the brothers would have caught him, would say, "Oh, wait, why are you talking about Yirat Elohim? You're an Egyptian." So this is the proof that you can't claim that you don't have to revere God because you're not a Hebrew or an Israelite or a Jew. It is universal. That's why Abraham could also tell Avimelech, "En yirat Elokim b'makom hazeh." So what is en yirat Elokim? The reverence of God is that supreme value or value that is beyond the parameters of the society, which prevents people from taking advantage of others when they are the most powerful.
Abraham didn't check first.
No, so apparently they had this reputation. And when you look later on in the story, in the behavior of Pelishtim, throughout Tanakh, they are always the villain that threatens Israel. So, and Avimelech doesn't say, "Oh no, you're wrong. We would treat you nicely." The Abraham's argument is that you have righteousness, that there's a pretense of righteousness, but in reality, there's no reverence of God. Yirat Elokim is the social glue, is the power that prevents people from harming others when they are in total control. If it's in a way, you look in the Bnei Barak and other religious cities, the level of crime is very low. There is crime. There is corruption and embezzlement and sexual harassment that usually, is swept under the carpet. I'm not saying that this is the ideal society, but what is so in my mind, at least, when I hear about a religious person who committed a crime, I think he was brought up, usually a man brought up in a religious environment, and I say maybe that helped to tone down the crime. Had he not been religious, he would be much worse. And so there is, it's not my argument, behavioral psychologists and evolutionists look
and you protect the pedophiles.
I don't know. Again, I said...
Okay, well, that's a different...
No, Rachel, this is a different story. Pedophiles and sexual harassment and embezzlement. I'm not saying... what I am saying, everybody...
The name of religion.
No, of course. God, don't...
Yeah.
There are terrible things that are done in the name of religion.
They're happening everywhere.
Right. They happen everywhere, but we cannot allow this to happen in the name of religion. Believe me, I'm the first one to cry to cry for when those things happen. We have to single out those people and say, they deserve punishment and not just Hilul Hashem. They are harming other people. You cannot. This is worse than not keeping Shabbat, than eating pork. All this. This is the worst crime that one could commit. Sexual harassment, also embezzlement, the same thing. Anyway, but this is done because you are still reined in because of religion.
Correct.
The study that was done in the United States with communes, that in the 1800s there were a lot of communes around the country. Some of them were based on social values. Some of them were based on religious values. All of them disappeared within 70, 80 years because you need some kind of a government to keep people together from falling apart. But what the study showed, which was interesting, was the religious communes usually lived twice as much as the non-religious societies, and that's where evolutionary biologists and psychologists came to the conclusion that religion is important. It does protect some kind of the fabric of society. So that's what Avraham is saying here. You don't have that reverence that will prevent you from taking advantage of me. That we don't know that, but like you said, maybe it was not justified. It says Ki amarti, I thought so. Maybe I was wrong.
What's the relationship that someone who's not, from Abraham on with God? So there's this dialogue between Avimelech, who's clearly outside of the tribe, with God and feels that threat and responds to it. But so there's some sort of relationship there.
Right.
And God does talk occasionally to people who are not,
right.
B'nai Israel. It's just a strange, how does that fit in culturally or religiously?
Yeah, so the term that they're using is Elohim, which is the plural of El. El means strength. Elohim in the plural is also used in Tanakh to denote idols. Elohim achirim al panai, other gods. So for Avimelech, it could have fit. He has some kind of a religious system. Actually, the mark of civilization is the appearance of a religious system. When archaeologists dig out ruins from the past, what tells them that there is a civilization are usually two things: burial practices, burial rituals, and religious rituals. So they just go together. It's the God gene that, according to evolutionists, it was a natural development, and according to believers, was installed by the chief technician. So for Avimelech, it could fit into God's, Abraham's God is protecting him, and it's like part of the pantheon. So there are local, and that by the way survived for thousands of years later, even when the Romans were besieging Jerusalem. They did not want to destroy the temple because they were afraid of the God of Israel. It's a local God, yes, but we don't want to upset any God. The Romans did not destroy any temple except for the one in Jerusalem. and that was because of the insistence of the stubbornness of the Jews of not giving in. So something similar happens here, and I think that's why Avraham continues to go. He says in 12, "V'gam omna achoti bat avi ach lo bat imi v'tihili leisha." So now he tries to defend himself, and is a much longer response than the one that he has, that he gives Paro. I don't even wait. What is it that Paro? No, with Paro is there's no response. Vayikra Paro leAvraham v'omer lo kach hinei ishtecha kach v'alech. Here's your wife. Take her and go. It's chapter 12, verse 18. Why didn't you tell me she's your wife? Take her and go. But with Avraham and Avimelech, there's a dialogue. Avraham feels that maybe he did something wrong. He has to explain himself. He says, she is my sister from my father's side, not from my mother's side, which also got people sort of like trying to figure out, is it allowed, is it not? And he married her. He says, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, and the term is negative, hitruoti, even though we translate Torah as wandering, it could be just traveling or being lost, but in the Tanakh it's always in the negative context. Like it's wandering without the sense of direction or purpose. So maybe that's how Avraham tries to defend himself. He says, "Please understand, I was clueless. We were detached. We were not in our place." So, but that is also possible. The end of the pasuk when he says, "Va'omar lazeh chasdech asher ta'aseh imadi el kol hamakom asher navo shama imiri liahu." Wherever we go, say that I'm your brother. Maybe that was really the agreement that they sort of got to in Mitzrayim. Just wherever we go, you'll say that. So Avimelech gives them gifts. He returns Sarah to Abraham. And in verse 16, I think there's he speaks with irony. ולשרה אמר, הנה נתתי 1,000 כסף לאחיך, הנה הוא לך כסות עיניים לכל אשר איתך, ואת כל ונוכחת. That's an enigmatic pasuk. It's very hard to understand.
Cynical.
Very cynical, right? He says, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, it is for you a covering of the eyes to all that are with you, and before all men you are righted." So this proves someone's righteousness. It doesn't say who. And in a way, he says, "You know that you were wrong, that you trapped me."
Right.
But you want to say this is your brother? Okay, here. That is, I gave your brother money. It's almost, okay, I don't want to say the word, but he blames him almost of using her to get money. So, and he says, Kesut Enaim, you're covering someone's eyes. Maybe you are the ones who are blinding others by doing that. So there is...
This is a payment for you for covering your eyes,
yes,
and not and agreeing to that agreement.
Right. So there is a rebuke. So this story doesn't go so smooth, sort of as it did with Paro and Mitzrayim. So from here we say to chapter 21. So Sarah is now blessed with the child, and Avraham calls that son Yitzhak. There's an emphasis in the Torah. Vayikra Avraham et shem beno hanolad lo asher yalda lo Sarah Yitzhak. Avraham calls the name of his son, which was born to him by Sarah, Yitzhak. And it's important because that emphasis
might be a question,
like who is the father,
right?
But
might
also
be Avimelech,
might be Avimelech, but also because there's a contrast with Ishmael, because Ishmael was disputed. The way Ishmael was conceived was through a process that we mentioned before, was the surrogate mother contract of that time. At that time, when a woman of nobility would take her servant or Avram's mistress and say, she will bear a child for you, al birkai, on my knees, it meant that she's not the mother of the child. She is the surrogate mother. And But Sarah undid the contract when she said when she drove. No, we'll see. She does it here actually. When she drives Hagar away, that's when she basically nullifies the contract. So Ishmael is the son of Abraham. Is not the son of Hagar, because Hagar is just a vessel in that society. In all the Near East, actually, we know that because documents were unveiled. They found documents that are contracts on surrogacy.
Well,
That woman.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sukkim make it also sound like she was just the vessel, and now Isaac is his to do as he pleases, which is to circumcise and then to sacrifice.
Right, exactly. So it's the contrast of Yitzhak with Ishmael. So he does the Brit Milah, and Sarah now says, "Tzachok asali Elohim, kol hashomea yitzhak li." God had made laughter for me. Now it seems that they come from a positive. Finally, she embraces her blessing. Vatomer mi milel leAvraham hinika banim Sarah ki yalad ben lizkunav. Who would said unto Abraham that Sarah should give him children who are breastfed, for I have borne him a son in old age. That to fortify that.
It's not she's the old age. He is.
Right.
And maybe he's getting back at him.
Maybe.
For saying,
she's old, right.
But the old one.
Yes. But also, again, this drives home the point that it is between them. She bore the son to him, he is the son from her, and so on. Right. And that is important because in verse 9, Vateres Sarah et ben Hagar ha-mitzrit asher yalda le'Avraham metzachek. So now the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she bore to Abraham. So this is the first time I think that Ishmael is called Ben Hagar, the son of Hagar. And Haim Ovadia is the first one to have pointed out that in that section, Ishmael is referred to in many different terms. Depends who's talking. So here is it called Ben Hagar. In verse 10, Vatomer leAvraham, Garesh ha'ama azot ve'et bena, ki lo yirash ben ha'ama azot im benim yitzhak. Drive away this maidservant with her son, because the son of the maidservant would not inherit with my son. So now he's called by Sarah Ben Ha'ama, not even Ben Hagar. She doesn't even have a name. He's Ben Ha'ama. He's a lowly servant. VaYera davar me'od be'inei Avraham al odot beno. Avraham feels very upset about his son because for him it is his son. Vayomer Elohim el Avraham in verse 12. Al yera be'ineicha al hanar ve'al amatecha. Don't worry about the lad and about your maidservant. So God says, you know what? I don't want to take a side in this argument. I don't want to call him your son. I don't want to call him the son of the maid. He's a child. He's a child. Don't feel bad. And he says, Kol asher tomar elecha Sarah shema bekola, ki Yitzhak yikare lecha zara. Do whatever Sarah says because Yitzhak will be your successor. And then, v'gam et ben ha'ama ligoya simenu ki zaracha. Once Avraham accepts that you have to send him away, says that from now on he will be Ben Ha'ama, because Sarah nullified. Actually, when did Sarah nullify the contract? When she argued with Avraham in the first round, and she said, "Look what she's doing to me," and Avraham said, "Do whatever you want with her." So he says basically the contract is null and void, where she's not a surrogate mother anymore. So now that's why she has a claim. I was always wondering, though, why does Hashem tell Abraham to do as Sarah says? It seems very cruel. He could have told him, maybe let's arbitrate, right? Bridge that he could stay in the house. He should be told how to behave, and Yitzhak will be your successor. Why do you have to send them away? Send them away in a way. Avraham went to an extreme. Vayashkem Avraham b'boker, the second time after he rises, after Sodom is destroyed. Now he rises and he sends her with bread and water, and v'telech v'teta b'midbar Beersheva, and she's wandering in the desert of Beersheva. The same term that he used, Elohim, right? That's the narrative uses the same verb, echoes it through the story. So a couple of years ago, I came to that idea. I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe because of things that I saw in families. What happens in a family where one child is the preferred child, right? The loved one, and the others are not so much. Or one child is rejected, and that rejected child insists of staying within the family. I've seen it with families I counseled, I've seen it within my own family, and I came to maybe what Hashem is telling Abraham. He says, I know that you care about Ishmael, but you better listen to Sarah because it's not healthy for him. If you insist on leaving him in the house, now that she has her own child, he's going to be miserable. That's not good for him. The good thing for him is to be it's a demotion, right? He's going to be Ben Ha'ama. And later on you see that Yitzhak and Ishmael actually maintain good connection. And they are both attending the funeral of Abraham. So maybe that is, but it went wrong. Because Abraham did this mitzvah as he didn't think through, and he sends her in the morning with just bread and water. She loses her way.
Maybe if you look at it, Ishmael, by character, he's a hunter, and later on so Hashem sees more than 3 steps ahead, and he knows Ishmael is very bright. You have to be quite conniving to be able to hunt properly, and whatever you saw on Yitzchak, he's such a Nebuch boy. He's such a mama's boy that this one would probably take over and spin him around.
I don't know. I don't know that Yitzhak was. I think Yitzhak is.
I have very little.
Okay, I have respect. I have respect for Yitzhak. I just think that Yitzhak being traumatized at a young age, because you have to remember that. I'm saying that. People usually look at the Akedah through the lenses of the Midrash and think that Yitzhak was 37 years old, which is totally illogical. According to Ibn Ezra, Yitzhak maybe was a teenager, maybe 12, 13. I think that he was even younger, that he might have been 6, 7 years old, not more than that. Otherwise, this whole dialogue doesn't make sense. This whole story doesn't make sense between Abraham and Yitzhak. But still, we will get there. The Akedah story is one of the most difficult stories of the Tanakh. And it's actually one that has shaped our theology for thousands of years. The idea of the Akedah and martyrdom. But I think Yitzhak had a very strong character, and he just sealed it in. After the Akedah, after being traumatized, he became that very you could say he was an introvert. He became an introvert because he didn't trust people too much. When you wake up one morning and you realize what happened yesterday, my dad tried to kill me, you lose, it's kind of losing trust in people. And we'll see, like with the next paragraph, it's when Avimelech and Pichol come to talk to Abraham and say, God is with you and let's be blessed and all that. And Abraham has a long discussion with them. He's a diplomat. He goes with them, conversation and so on. When the same thing happens with Yitzhak, and Avimelech and Pichol come to talk to Yitzhak and say, we are friends, he says, Madua batem elai, vatem senetem oti vateshachrim ahem. Why did you come to talk to me? You hate me. You drove me away. Like, no nonsense. Yitzhak doesn't hit around the bush. And that's maybe also why Rivka is afraid to talk to him, because that channel of communication is sealed. He loves her. He's metzahek et Sarah ishto. He knows how to be gentle with her, but not in words. The only person that he communicates with more tenderly is with Esav. Maybe because he sees that strong personality. Maybe. But we'll have time to get to Esav and Yaakov.
Somebody else needs to go get a wife for him. When they bring her, he takes her to his mommy's house.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
I hear that. No,
build a house,
he says,
live a family on your own.
He says, "Vayinachem Yitzhak acharei imo." I know that from a Freudian point of view, it looks very bad, or the Oedipal complex, but the word is not VaYera ela Sarah imo, Vayinachem Yitzhak acharei imo. that idea of comfort. It's not.
Yes, he brings a brand new wife to his house for him to overcome his mother, not for him to love and build a family.
No, but he did love her.
loved her.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Nowhere in the text it says.
It says VaYera Yitzhak metzaheket Rivka ishto. That's the one place that we find that. But I'm just to look a little differently. It says vayinachem. The word is comfort.
Nechama, right?
Nechama. Why comfort? Because if we really take it into that Yitzhak was traumatized by the way his father treated him. So the one person that he could find comfort with is his mother. So he misses that kind of emotion that he needs someone to talk to. So not necessarily nebuch. That's I could almost flip it around and say that this would be. Oh, Rabbi Yaveh, right. He loved her, yes.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you. But Tehilo Leisha Yaveh, right. Thank you. Thank you. I almost
loved her. He reached comfort with his mom.
Yes.
I'll accept it. You found the text.
We almost run the danger of taking a chauvinistic point of view and saying that a man who is emotional is weak, right? We want men to be emotional. We need to have, and it's hard to teach them sensitivity. So, Yitzhak is not in an easy spot. It's not at all. But like you said, Ishmael going to the desert, he finds his spot, and God is with him. So this story sort of ends well, but already it's for both and on what is going to happen next with Abraham. So then Avimelech and Abraham have this dialogue. Okay, they call it Beersheba. I want to skip to just start to touch the story of the Akedah because this is really an important piece, as I said, of our theology. So God now talks to Abraham in chapter 22, and he says, please take your only son, the one you loved, Yitzhak, and go to the land of Moriah and bring up as a sacrifice on one of the mountains, which I will point out to you. And Abraham has no arguments, no second thoughts. He gets up in the morning, he settles the donkey, takes his servants with him, and Yitzhak, he splits wood, and he goes to the place, and they travel for 3 days. This is an example that one of the commentators of Tanakh, Benu Avraham, makes this is the point of, you see how the Tanakh doesn't give us too many details. That would be a perfect place for the Tanakh to elaborate 3 days of a journey.
Maybe it's too painful.
Yeah, but this is a perfect place for a novel to expand on, right? But the Tanakh leaves that, it's a blank. What happens here? And a lot was written on what happened here. One of the Midrashim became so popular, the story about the Satan trying to prevent Yitzhak from going, that it became part of the Quran. And then until today, when they do the Hajj, the devout Muslims go around the Kaaba in Mecca. There are 3 places where they throw stones to mark the place where Satan tried to prevent Abraham from sacrificing Ishmael, according to their tradition. So we will go into the details of the story. But in general, we have to ask the question, like, what was God thinking, and what was Abraham thinking? And really, did Abraham fail, or did he pass this test? Because we are used to read the story as Abraham passed the test with flying colors. He was willing to sacrifice his son for Hashem. But I mentioned it on Shabbat briefly when we were talking about the Haftarah. The Haftarah of this Shabbat is of the previous Shabbat, Parashat Balak, is from the book of Micha. And in Micha, chapter 6, verse 6, 7, 8, verses 6, 7, 8, the Navi says, how can I please God? Should it be with sacrifices? It should be thousands of rams, myriads of rivers of oil? No. So yes, we know that the prophets were already against sacrifices. Don't think that you could bribe God or feed God through your sacrifices. But then he asks, Should I sacrifice my firstborn to atone, to expiate for my soul? And the Navi says, no, don't do that. You want to know what is good? What is that Hashem wants from you? Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. This is exactly Avraham Avinu. Right? Avraham is it's a humble person. What is the Micha telling us? Micha says, Avraham, you were wrong by accepting the Akedah, by accepting that challenge. You thought
even
that
asking.
Not even asking,
questioning.
Right? That's not what God wanted. He doesn't want a sacrifice. That's exactly the point that Hashem was trying to make. I'm not interested in human sacrifice. But so why is God asking anyway? I found an answer to that in a totally unexpected place. Not from the person I thought would be for me a commentator of the On Tanakh, Yair Lapid. He has a book. Yeah, I know. But Yair Lapid has a book called Giborei Tanakh Shali. And he made one point. This is the one point that the only thing I remember from the whole book is that point. He says, God wants to teach us with the story of the Akedah that you should not ask something that the giver cannot deny. Meaning, in the case of Abraham and
something that the giver
cannot deny, that the one that you're asking from, because Abraham loves God so much, he's so devoted to God, he cannot say no, and it's unfair. So sometimes you ask for a sacrifice from a friend, and you know that person would not be able to say no. But put yourself in his place. Would you be willing to do that? Do you really want that? So I think that's a very important point. Abraham was unable to say no. Abraham would have loved for God to say, sacrifice yourself. He would have done it without questions. That's a much more difficult challenge to sacrifice your son. Abraham would have wanted that to not happen, but he wasn't able maybe to think, can he say no to God? And maybe, that's what Hashem wanted, just like he did with Sodom. He stood up and said no. But with Sodom, he felt that he's defending other people. Here, he felt that this is required from him directly. However, and we'll see next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. That's why
I have a question for you.
Yeah, wait, before the question, I just want to say, next week we'll discuss it. There's one person that Abraham didn't think about. That's Sarah. Where is she in this whole picture? And that, the one that later on becomes really, so we could say, a rift between the Ashkenazi world and the Sephardic world. The Ashkenazi world goes towards martyrdom. That's because of the influence of Christianity. And the Sephardic world goes towards rejection of martyrdom. When possible, flee, or even convert superficially, but don't kill yourself. And in our liturgy, the piyut that we read, the Sephardim read before the blowing of the shofar, Oked v'Ne'ekad, is one of the most powerful pieces of philosophy, theology, that is in our Siddur. And it's amazing we read it just before the blowing of the shofar, because really what that poet is saying, he says the Akedah is not a good idea. This is the place where you have to balance your commitment to God versus your
survival.
Not just survival, your commitment to other people. Like the poet is saying, when God comes and tells Avraham, I want you to sacrifice your son, the first thing he should have asked, what about Yitzhak? Second question is, what about Sarah? And he didn't do that. But we'll do it next week, B'ezrat Hashem. Someone is at the door. Yes.